In 1973, a CIA director ordered the destruction of thousands of classified files. It took 2 days. By the time investigators arrived, the paper trail was gone. The program it described, one of the most disturbing government operations in American history, had been quietly erased, but not entirely. What survived, a small cache of financial documents filed in the wrong building, would eventually expose a secret that the United States government had spent 20 years perfecting, the systematic destruction of the human mind. This is the story of Project MKUltra. The year is 1950. The Cold War is not yet 5 years old, and American intelligence is already convinced that the Soviets have developed something terrifying, a method to control human thought. Show trials in Eastern Europe. Prisoners confessing to crimes they could not have committed. American POWs returning from Korea with beliefs that seemed rewritten. The CIA called it brainwashing, and they were afraid. So in April 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles signed off on a program unlike anything the agency had attempted before. It was given the code name MKUltra. Its mission was straightforward and deeply disturbing. Find a way to control the human mind, to make a person confess to anything, believe anything, forget anything. The project would run for 20 years. It would involve over 150 separate research programs, and it would be conducted in large part on people who had no idea they were subjects at all. The methods used in MKUltra read less like science and more like punishment. LSD was administered to subjects without their knowledge or consent, soldiers, prisoners, mental patients, and ordinary citizens picked from the streets. Researchers wanted to observe what happened when a person's grip on reality was chemically severed. Electroshock therapy was used at intensities far beyond what any medical guidelines permitted, not to treat illness, but to erase memory. To produce what the program's architects called a blank slate, sensory deprivation, hypnosis, paralytic drugs that left subjects conscious but unable to move while interrogators worked on them for hours. And at the center of all of it, one man, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist, a CIA officer, a man who believed with complete sincerity that what he was doing was necessary to protect the free world. Gottlieb ran MKUltra for over a decade. He personally oversaw the dosing of unwitting subjects. He approved experiments conducted in secret safe houses, some of them disguised as brothels, where CIA operatives would lure men off the street, drug them, and watch. He called it a Operation Midnight Climax. The subjects were never told. Many never recovered. But perhaps no story captures the darkness of MKUltra more completely than the death of Frank Olson. Olson was a U.S. Army biochemist, a government scientist, a man who worked alongside Gottlieb and knew the program's secrets from the inside. In November 1953, he attended a CIA retreat in rural Maryland. During the meeting, Gottlieb secretly dosed the drinks of everyone present with LSD without warning, without consent. Even his own colleagues were not exempt. Olson had a severe reaction. In the days that followed, he became withdrawn, distressed. He told his wife he had made a terrible mistake. 9 days after being drugged, Frank Olson fell from a window on the 13th floor of a New York hotel. The CIA ruled it a suicide. His family was told he had jumped. They were given no further explanation. It would take 22 years before the truth began to surface. In 1975, when the Church Committee began investigating CIA abuses, Olson's family learned for the first time that he had been drugged without his knowledge. President Ford personally apologized. Congress paid the family $750,000. But Frank Olson's son, Eric, never accepted the suicide ruling. He had his father's body exhumed in 1994. Forensic evidence suggested Olson had been struck on the head before he went through the window. No one was ever charged. By the early 1970s, MKUltra was winding down. The techniques had never produced the reliable mind control the CIA had hoped for. The program was expensive, and increasingly people on the inside were becoming uncomfortable. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of all MKUltra files. It was not a careless decision, it was deliberate, systematic. 2 days of shredding, burning, and erasing. When the Senate Select Committee, the Church Committee, began its investigation 2 years later, investigators found almost nothing. Almost. A filing error had sent a set of financial documents to the wrong archive. 7 boxes, buried under decades of unrelated paperwork. Those boxes contained enough evidence to blow the program open. In 1977, the full Senate hearings on MKUltra were televised. Americans watched CIA officials describe, in careful bureaucratic language, what had been done to their fellow citizens for 2 decades. No one went to prison. Sidney Gottlieb retired to a farm in Virginia. He raised goats. He took up folk dancing. He died in 1999, never having faced criminal charges for any of what he had done. MKUltra was officially acknowledged, investigations were conducted, hearings were held, and then, for the most part, the world moved on. But the program did not disappear without leaving marks. The interrogation techniques developed under MKUltra, sensory deprivation, sleep disruption, stress positions, would reappear decades later in manuals used at Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib. Researchers have traced direct lines between what Gottlieb built in the 1950s and what American interrogators used after September 11th. The Canadian government paid reparations to survivors of experiments conducted at McGill University, where a CIA-funded psychiatrist named Ewan Cameron destroyed patients' personalities and attempted to rebuild them from scratch. Many of those patients had come to Cameron seeking treatment for depression. They left unable to remember their own names, and the 20,000 documents that Richard Helms ordered destroyed. We will never know what was in them. What we do know from the 7 boxes that survived is enough to understand that for 20 years the United States government treated its own citizens as raw material for experiments in psychological destruction. And when it was over, it erased the evidence, retired the architects, and called it history. The name of the program was MKUltra, and the people responsible for it were never punished. If you found this documentary valuable, subscribe to The Suppressed. Every week a new story, a story that was buried, erased, or simply never told. The truth doesn't disappear, it just gets filed in the wrong place.